Hey Stripe Youth, it's Lou Phillips with Ravi, Zacharias, International Ministries. Duan reached out to me asking me to answer some of the questions that you guys were having. If you don't know, this is kind of what we do with RZIM, and I'm very passionate about answering these questions because I think they're very, very important. So one, thank you for asking these questions. And secondly, I just want you to know that your questions do matter because you matter, and the questions that you are grappling with, I believe God cares about them. And I just want to hopefully answer them or give you a response in the way that I've also had to grapple with these questions, because the two that Duan sent me are very, very prevalent and something I've had to ask myself. And so the first one I'd love to answer is this. I'm not sure who asked it, but I'll read it out. It says, if God is all-knowing and all-loving and all-powerful, then how does suffering and evil exist? Because God is in full control, meaning he sees and allows evil, which means he would be allowing evil, meaning he is not all-loving or is not all-powerful to stop the evil. This is a really, really great question, and it's one that's just been asked for millennia, if I'm being honest. It's also, in philosophy, it's called the trilemma. If God is all-powerful or all-knowing, how could he possibly let evil exist? It seems like one of those things have to be not true for that to be possible, because he could be all-powerful but just not all-loving, so he lets it, or he could be all-loving but not all-powerful, so he can't stop it. It was first made, I think, famous by Epicurus or something. I think it's the Epicurean dilemma. Don't quote me on that one. But I will say, from a philosophical standpoint, that one actually has been debunked, though. Here's why. Because what you don't realize is there's a hidden assumption in what you're saying right there. And the hidden assumption is that God doesn't have any good reason to let it exist. Now, that might seem off. You're like, well, what do you mean? Well, what could possibly be good of him letting evil exist? I'm not saying you have to figure out what that answer is, but if there is some outweighing good, if he has morally sufficient reasons to allow evil to exist, then there's no contradiction there, because it's appealing to contradiction and saying premise A, premise B, conclusion. If one of these things are out of whack, then it's inconsistent. I would say from a philosophical standpoint, that's kind of been debunked in general, but that doesn't actually get to the heart of the question, is what I will say, because I get maybe you're still frustrated, like, no, but I still don't like that answer. And I agree with you. It's really, really tough, especially if you yourself are going through some type of pain or frustration. And in that, I am going to be very honest with you. If you're currently going through something so difficult, there's not many words anybody can give you right now that will satisfy what you're going through. And I know that just from talking to somebody, just from even going through in pain. But here's the way I would hope you'd start thinking about this problem. So initially, when we go through any form of suffering, or we're looking through the evil of this world, you initially really have two options, right? You could say, well, because of this, I just refuse to believe God exists, because there's no way he would allow this. And that really is one valid option you could take. Another one is, I do believe he exists, but I don't know how or why he's doing what he's doing, right? So let's take that first question, or that first stance initially. He doesn't exist. My challenge to you to that, if that is your conclusion right now, is why the outrage? I'm not saying that if you come from a secular or naturalist approach, you can't possibly be frustrated or angry about the evil or the way people are being treated and all that thing, or even just the coronavirus right now, COVID-19. What I'm saying is you don't have a moral framework for it, because if all we have right now is all that exists, there is no God. This is all by accident. It's all time plus chance plus matter, meaning the beginning was pointless, the end will be pointless. Trying to find meaning in the beginning, in the center of that's also almost pointless. Bad things can happen, but there's no reason to be morally outraged. It's just kind of the way it is. Like, you'd have to just say, even with this virus right now, pandemics are quite, I mean, we've seen throughout human history they happen. It's just kind of a natural thing. It could be a natural cleansing evolutionarily. I mean, is that the way you feel about it? I don't feel that way. In fact, everything in me wants to say, no, that this is wrong. And you'd have to say also that the evil that you're talking about is quite subjective. Meaning, if in 100 years from now, as a society, we say that's no longer evil, then it technically isn't, because there is no objective truth. Because if there is no objective truth, everything that we say is bad or good can change. Now, I know you don't live that way, because neither do I. Humans have never tried living there. There's small groups that have tried that, and we've seen the worst atrocities ever done by humans. So there's an option there, and you can do it. But what I'm saying is, like, what you're craving right now is hope. right? That's the reason you can actually go through a lot of pain in this life, and if you have a strong hope, you can actually be pushed through it and come out victoriously. What we're craving in the midst of this, and I think the reason why we so often want to shake our fists at God when we see this, because we don't find there's any hope. So that's an option. I just don't see what you gain from doing it, though. You're still stuck with the answers like life's still hard, life's still painful. You have nothing to grapple on other than just to say, get over it. That's not how I operate. But if that's where you want to claim this, we can come back to that, maybe. The second option would be, okay, maybe there is a God, but I don't know why. Well, then your option is, well, which God? There's so many options right now. There's so many religions. And look, I don't have time to go into every single world religion. All I can tell you is that some are going to say it's your fault. Whatever you're going through is specifically because of what you've done prior. Some are going to say it's God's judgment on you. Just deal with it. Others are going to say it's actually an illusion. It doesn't exist. Just separate yourself from it and it won't matter. Christianity says something fundamentally different. And here's my answer to you on why does Christianity actually offer us something in the midst of this. First, Christianity acknowledges that inner assumption that you have that something's off is correct. Like Christianity over and over again says something is out of whack in this world, that we're in a broken world because of what sin has done. And now we're going to experience pain. We're going to experience the evils of this world. So it's great that at first it acknowledges that you're right. You should, everything in you should be shaking is that, this is wrong, because the Bible says you're right on that. The second thing that the Bible says, which is I have yet to see any other worldview even remotely claim, is that God himself was willing to actually allow suffering upon himself. Now, that might not seem like a big deal, but no other worldview dare claim that God himself suffered other than Christianity. And why I think that's such a big deal is it doesn't give us the answer as to why God does allow evil. What it tells us what the answer cannot be, which is that he's indifferent. A God that's willing to subject himself to suffering can't also be a God that doesn't care about suffering. In fact, he cared about it so much he was willing to take it on himself, because he says, this isn't the way this was created. I'm coming to remedy all things. And in the end, I will. And this is the third thing Christianity says, is actually in the end, there will be redemption. There will be reconciliation. There will be this hope. You know, that inner longing that you wish this world was full of peace and hope and no pain. Like the Bible actually describes that as the end goal, as the end of what everything's going to go to. And you don't ethereally go into some heavenly body and float on for all existence. He's going to create a new earth with all the things that you see and you love here. There's a reason why you love these things. What you need right now is hope. You don't, and if you're going through pain right now, no answer is going to be like, oh, this is great. Because quite frankly, there is no worldview that gives you this watertight answer as to why evil and suffering exist in a way that satisfies your heart and your mind. I think Christianity is the only one that remotely comes close to satisfying both your mind and your heart, but then also giving you a livable hope. There's so much more to that question, but I hope that gives you at least a way to think about it logically, in a way that I hope that you're willing to at least entertain Christianity, because Christianity may not give you the exact answer you want, but I think it's given us enough to know that the God of the Bible can be trusted with your pain, because he too knows what it means to suffer.